Fireside Tales. Hello, I'm Merlin, Mililli. Welcome to my fireside, where I tell weird tales within tales. And I drink coffee. I drink coffee from my skull mug because I'm a deadhead. And I tell weird tales like the story of the Grateful Dead every week, as I heard it from a deadhead by a fire. This fire is really warm. And the log was spitting. Oh, I'm going to stand over here for a second and discuss some things. Ooh, it's a hot fire. So every week here at Fireside Tales, I've been discussing the Akasha, or the Akashic Records. And my furry friends have been getting in on as much action as they can. I don't know if it picked up, but that was Bear growling at Squeaky, because Squeaky was trying to chew on him. So, the Akashic Records is an ancient library in which every soul has a book. And it's a meditative library. You can only get there through meditation. So it's sort of a metaphysical library. I received a key from my spirit guides when I was a teenager, and I only go there with my spirit guides, and I only look in my soul's book. And I just don't have really a desire to look in anyone else's book. I don't feel like that's really any of my business, and there's so much information in my book that I really don't need to muddle through anyone else's information. My book is extraordinarily large and old and dusty. This fire is extraordinarily hot and burning my arm. So, I discuss my book in the Akashic Records every week because this is a show about reincarnation. And my book is basically a book about reincarnation. It's a record of all my lives. So every week here at Fireside Tales, I've been discussing my book, essentially. And last season, we covered each life a little bit. And this season, we've gone back to the very first life I ever was, the very first person I ever was, and now we're working our way forward. So every week I've been discussing threads that link each life to the next. And these threads, these are the threads that started with the little flower. So they go back quite far. Little flower lived about 10,000 years ago. So I've been smudging for 10,000 years, give or take. This is dried sage. When it's bundled, we call it a smudge stick. It's for cleansing your aura. Cleansing your outsides of all negativity that comes from other people, and other places, and other things. And it smells nice. Some people don't think it smells nice, but I think it smells nice. And one of the other things I've been doing since I was little flower is grounding, which I like to take my shoes off for. So I'm going to take my shoes off. I recommend taking your shoes off. Barefoot in the dirt is the best. Sand is good. At the beach, that's nice. So grounding is a cleansing for your insides. So you blow out all your negativity. And breathe in positive. You think an uber positive thought. Till you breathe out positive. I use grounding before I do readings. I read tarot and runes. I use grounding before I do rituals. I use grounding before I meditate. Also, fire is a thread. Fire safety. I like to talk about fire safety every week because I live in California, and fire safety is a pretty big issue for us here. So if you have a fire, you want to make sure you have water near it. I have water in my kettle. I have water in my cauldron. I have water in my sprayer around the corner. So, this is a very warm fire. So, another link thread I have is that I seem to have been a psychic medium throughout each life, including this one. And even if I didn't know it, I think I was a psychic medium. So I have the ability to communicate with the spirit realm. And like I said, this show is about reincarnation. We talk about reincarnation here. And the spirit realm has their own theory. I guess it's not really a theory. I haven't been able to disprove it. And I'm pretty sure the spirits wouldn't go out of their way to tell me this theory if it was just a theory. But the spirits think that if you're reincarnated, you were also murdered. That's a little interesting twist to reincarnation that people don't like to talk about. But now I'm going to tell you the story of the Grateful Dead. Like I said, as I heard it, from a deadhead by a fire. In case some of you are confused, a deadhead is someone who really likes the band The Grateful Dead. It's a 60s psychedelic rock band. And I happen to really like them. They also got their name, though, from a story in the Tibetan Book of the Dead called The Story of the Grateful Dead. So here we go. I'm trying to stay clear of my fire. It's very hot. Excuse me. Once, long, long ago, there was a traveler. It was so long ago that she traveled on foot. One day, while she was traveling along, she happened upon a village. As she got closer to the village, she noticed that there was a crowd in the center of the village. She got closer still and realized that the crowd was squabbling. They were arguing. They were fighting. As she got closer still, she noticed that the townspeople were fighting quite literally over a dead body. They were fighting over his debts and who was going to pay them. They were fighting over who was going to bury him and who was going to pay for that. And the traveler just thought all of this was gross and disrespectful to the dead man that was still laying there. So the traveler stopped the townspeople. This is squeaky. And the traveler paid the dead man's debts and paid for a proper burial and prayed over the dead man's body and grave. And she traveled on. And then, one day, decades later, the traveler, the same traveler from the beginning of the story, happened upon a life or death situation. And a stranger came out of nowhere and just scooped her up and saved her life. Traveler said, "Thank you. Who are you? Where did you come from? Why did you save my life?" And the stranger simply says, "I am the Grateful Dead." Because it was the dead man whom she had paid the debts of and paid for a proper burial for and prayed over his grave. He was grateful. He was grateful that she had done that, and he made note to pay her back And then he did. It's a story about reincarnation. Some people think it's a corpse at the end, but corpses don't save lives. Some people think it's a zombie at the end, but again, zombies don't save lives. It's not a thing. Reincarnated people, they can save lives. It's decades later. The man died. He was dead, right? Then he was reborn in a little baby body, and he got to live a whole new life. Reincarnation. It's a thing. So, murder happens to kind of be a thread. It's not one of those things that I hold dear, which is all the rest of my threads, but it is something that I have in common with each other life. And then reincarnation, which is a much more positive note. And stars and stargazing, we've talked about these threads. Astral projection, interdimensional travel, big cats, nature, earth worship, music, singing, stones, angels, light. These are all things that I carried from this first life all the way to this one. So, like I said, last season we discussed every life in my book, 23 of them. And this season we've gone all the way back to the very first life in my book, that of Little Flower, an ancient Mayan from Peru near what is now Machu Picchu. Excuse me. I decided that 45 minutes is just not enough time to accurately tell the story of someone's life, especially someone like Little Flower, who not only lived 10,000 years ago, but she also lived for over 1,000 years. I have this strange watermark in my book in the Akashic Records. I think it marks the Great Flood. It seems to mark where time changed from BC to AD. Everything before the watermark is light and dry and sandy, and everything after the watermark is dark and wet and muddy. And the lives that I lived before the watermark are extremely long, like thousands of years long. And the lives that I lived after the watermark are distinctly shorter, much shorter. And there's also a king's list carved into stone in 3, maybe even 4 different languages, in which it documents the same exact weird phenomena. And people are like, oh, those kings couldn't have lived for thousands of years. That's just not possible. But the dates even coincide with what I find in my book. So it might not be such a ludicrous thing. Maybe the king was trying to let people know that before the flood, we lived longer lives. In fact, I'm sure that's what he was doing. So, refer to our Darius episode last season. So, we have covered so far this season for Little Flower: smudging, meditation, angels, astral projection, light, her culture, the time period, what we know, his story, what I know, her story, her birth parents, her childhood, her schooling, her teen years, her higher education, her profession, her life, her love, her threads, which began with her and run through every other life deeply up to me in present day. These threads link all of my lives together. Today, we are going to discuss what we think of Little Flower's murder. To be honest, I didn't really think Little Flower had been murdered until spirits told me that she had to have been murdered if she was reincarnated. So I only recently started looking at this. Excuse me. She lived so long ago. I just didn't think that 1,000-year-old people could be murdered. I don't know. It didn't occur to me that would be a thing. Yet, I have found that she was. I have told you that Little Flower taught meditation and astral travel and interdimensional travel. Yes. Interdimensional travel. She taught her whole tribe how to move from one dimension to another physically. And I believe they were successful at it. Only she hadn't really thought it out and really wasn't thinking that it would ever be used. This was something that maybe was used by generations before her and was taught to her by generations before her. So, and think about these generations. These people were living for, I think my parents lived for like 3,000 years or something ludicrous like that. I know it sounds crazy, but all of this kind of sounds crazy, doesn't it? I could think of some people who talk some crazy stuff that people swallow all the time. It isn't true. This stuff, no matter how I slice it, no matter how many times I go back and look, it's always the same. The truth is like that. It doesn't change up. That's how you know something's a lie. When somebody changes their story all the time, that's how you know it's not real. This stuff, it's always the same. It's been the same in my book. Every time I go to it since I was a teenager. I'm in my 40s now. So sometimes interdimensional travel was very dicey. It was always dicey. I've since found a meditative way to travel to other dimensions without one's body that seems to work much better. But this was my first life 10,000 years ago, and I really didn't think, okay, this tactic was for when my tribe was attacked. This was like, in case of emergency, use this tactic. And it had been handed down from generation to generation to generation. So there hadn't been war before. This was my reaction to war. At this time, I was the chief of my tribe, and this is how I decided to react to war. Don't run away, disappear. Fairly effective. However, we really didn't think there were any other people on the planet. We didn't think we were going to be attacked. We didn't think the tactic we had cooked up through completely, because I never thought we were actually going to use it. And then we did. And I hadn't really thought it through. Because I really didn't think there were other people. So I didn't think that was going to be an obstacle when moving the tribe to another place. But it turned out that I moved the tribe, and I moved the tribe into a war zone, basically. I think I moved the tribe into two warring peoples who just slaughtered all of us. Because they were already killing each other. And then they didn't know who we were. So, and we weren't prepared to fight. We were just moving. So, I'm pretty sure we were all killed. So that wasn't really a good tactic. Though it would have been if we successfully moved the whole tribe and thought that through. But we really didn't think that through, or I didn't. So I was murdered. For the first time. That becomes a threat. So, last week, my voice was out. This week, my voice sounds a little rough, but I was pretty good yesterday, so I think I'm going to go ahead and sing today. I didn't sing last week. Every week I sing a song about reincarnation. I used to sing David Crosby's Deja Vu. And then I wrote my own song called Before. Just keep the words written down in case I forget. I write, host, direct this show, and I'm recording. So it's better to have my words written down in case my mind wanders somewhere and I forget them. reincarnation, 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 reincarnation. I'm back, I'm back, I'm back. Somebody stabbed me in the back, and now I'm back. I'm back. I'm back. But I lack memory of who I was. I must look back. But I lack memory of who I was before. 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 Then I opened the door and I found out who I'd been before, before, before. Who I was, when I was, where I was before, before, before. I opened the door to find it there. No more, no more, no more. Before, before, before. Sweating bullets. Whew. Whew. Well, I'm sweating. Whew. It's a warm fire. And then when you pour your soul out, you tend to sweat. Just pour my soul out for you. I hope you all appreciate it. I do kind of put my soul out on the line here. But I think in past lives, I've been very secretive about discovering my past lives. And I think maybe that's where I've gone wrong. And people don't really seem to understand reincarnation. And I think that by making this show and by sharing my knowledge, I am enlightening people to what reincarnation is to make it easier for others who are trying to piece together this kind of puzzle that I've pieced together. It really was like a puzzle. My lives all fit together really quite neatly. And the dates matter. Um, this life, this body was born the day the last person I was died. So that theory that birth begins at gestation or conception is nonsense, because it doesn't, the soul doesn't arrive until right at birth. So I don't think that the conception theory is true at all, because I didn't get here till this body was all on its own. And it happened reoccurringly. So I guess that's about it for me today. And I hope you all have a weird and wonderful weekend. Thank you for starting it by the fireside. Thanks for watching. A Mililli Studios production.